book over here.
Why don't you take students?
Pardon?
Why don't you take students?
Take two?
Students. Why don't you take students into the lab? Students.
Students. Oh.
Yeah, well, it's a very small lab.
I get continual requests for students. And people say, can I come and work for you for a year in the lab, sort of thing. I've just never worked with, except for Peyton, who's been my buddy for 40 years. I've never.
No room.
Pardon?
There's no room in that lab.
Oh,
It's too small.
we could store the fuel for the fireplace outside the lab, I guess, more space. But the idea, you get into legal responsibilities. I have a magic stock room, for example, that I probably have 10,000 chemicals in. It's up above, behind the lab. The DEA tried to, when they were in a very dedicated move toward getting me out of the lab and closing the thing down. They had no reason to do that, but they nonetheless, they sent around the state environmental whoozy. They sent out the federal environmental protection, whatever it is. And they all came out to see if indeed the magic stock room I have upstairs met the requirements of safety for employees and all this sort of thing. I don't have any employees. I don't have anybody working with me. So I was exempt from the federal environmental rules because I didn't employ people. You know, you have to have this kind of thing on the floor and that kind of thing on the walls and fire extinguishers here and an emergency what's there. They don't apply if you're the only person. And so being a loner in the lab, it also is very nice to go in the middle of the night and you kind of know where you left it and you can start up without bothering to turn the light on. You know where things are. And so the idea of...
Not really.
I never followed through on the thought of getting anybody working with me, except for Peyton, of course.
Input from Myron, please.
Yeah. I'd like to say a few words about the title of the subject that was printed in the paper that announced this. How can you get the most out of psychedelics? And I'm here to tell you that I've gotten an awful lot out of psychedelics, a tremendous amount. But, you know, there's kind of a dilemma here because you're all out there, and I know very few of you, and I don't know what your experience is or how far you've gone, just where you would be. And for all I know, you all know more about this than I do. But what I will do, I'll just spend a few minutes to focus on some of the things I think you need to be careful about. And first, let's sort of imagine that you're starting as a novice. I think it's extremely important to have a very knowledgeable person to be present because it depends, of course, on the chemical you're using, but if you're using something like LSD, and let us not forget that it's illegal now, and I'm not encouraging anybody to break the law, but it is the law. But there are places you can go outside of the country and so forth where you might be able to have an LSD experience. And LSD is a fantastic opener. But, you know, if you take a large dose, you may not know what's going to be opened and what direction you're really going in. And you might open up this dark side that Ann was talking about, and I'm glad you brought that up because I think that's a very important issue, because I think we all do have this shadow, and the shadow is unconscious. And since it is unconscious, it controls our actions and our feelings without our knowing it. And the only way you can get free of that is to reach down deep enough into the shadow and actually experience the event or whatever it is that's happened that's caused the difficulty. Because once you do that, then you're free. You can make a choice. I can either forget this, I can get rid of it. But as long as you don't really experience it, it's unconscious and it'll continue to control you until you do find a way to get down there and clear it up. But getting back to what I was saying, thank you. So it's very helpful to have someone, and I've learned more about this. I have to say that when I first got into this, I was really, really uptight and repressed in a lot of ways, and I never really could feel other people. And gee, just in the last couple of years or so, and well, I'll add something to that in a minute. But in the last couple of years or so now, I get where I can feel people's energy. And then I began to find out if you're having a hard time, if there's a person sitting with you and they're a good person and a knowledgeable person, that's an enormous support, and it makes it a lot easier to work through these things. But also, it's easier to get into this dark material because at the same time, these chemicals are opening to your deep inner self. And if you ever reach your deep inner self, that's pure euphoria. That's pure beauty and wonder. In fact, if you really get in there, it's beauty and wonder beyond any way of describing. So that is there, and so that's your friend waiting to help you if you begin to clear the junk out of the way so that you can reach deeper and deeper in and begin to contact that material. Yes.
Follow-up question similar to that. We've all had bad trips, and sometimes it's just wrong place, wrong time, wrong set, whatever. But if you had a particularly really horrendous bad trip, where about some horrible whatever gets firmly imprinted in your mind from the bad trip, and then it keeps recurring in your life to the point where, you know, the imagery or whatever. What's your advice on trying to clear that, get rid of it, deal with it, get over it?
Well, the basic problem is that you haven't gone deep enough into it. And I tell you, I'm an expert on this. I've been at it, almost 50 years. So I have a feeling I know a little something about this part of it. But first of all, it's painful to get into the shadow material. And actually what I found